Hello, Rick.
G'day, Karen.
Thanks for joining us today. You're involved in quite a few different community initiatives. Tell us a bit about what you're involved in at the moment.
Well, I think sometimes I think of myself as a bit of a hat collector, actually, Karen.
Easy to do.
Obviously, obviously, Modern Healthy Minds is what you're particularly interested in today. But I've been a member of the Healthy Minds Network for over 10 years. The group's auspiced by the Loddon Shire, and it's involved with the promotion of awareness of mental health issues, mental illness and suicide prevention across the Shire. I'm also a member of the local Lions Club, which is, of course, is part of Lions International Service Club. We run barbecues, working bees, raise funds for aged care. I organise the Youth of the Year, and also I do the fines at the dinner meetings as well. So,
wow. Another
organisation I'm involved in for the last couple of years is Ride for Life, which is based around motorcycles and rides. And I used to ride a fair bit. Several of the riders involved in the organisation have faced their own demons, and they now conduct rides to communities to start conversations around mental health and suicide to get people talking about it. The group hasn't been very active in Victoria in the last 12 months because of COVID, of course, but we have a chapter in Western Australia which has been going gangbusters over there and getting out all over the community and talking. And everyone involved in Ride for Life is a volunteer. There are no paid staff at all, and any funds raised goes to frontline services. So we don't give money to Lifeline, we don't give money to Beyond Blue. We will give money to a Lifeline project or a Beyond Blue project or somebody's mental health project, but it has to go direct to the front line. We're not interested in funding administration. So we're a registered charity and a deductible gift recipient as well. So I don't ride any longer because I had a bit of an incident with a kangaroo that's upset me a bit.
That's no good.
But I'm still on the committee, and I do all the internet work and the event registrations as well. So apart from that, I'm secretary of the local men's shed. I initiated the Wedderburn Flora and Fauna Facebook, which now has 190 members because of a street art project here. I'm on the committee in the RSL. I'm involved with Wedderburn Tourism, doing incorporation and insurances and banking. And the latest little joy that I've got involved in is a thing called the Loddon Project. It's an initiative that's been set up by the Shire to obtain community feedback and input into where the community wants the Shire heading over the next 10 years. So I'm on the reference group, and which is really exciting. I'm really looking forward to getting as much community input as possible.
Well, I think it is right when you say you're collecting hats there. That's a pretty impressive list of involvement. So you've said, like, a lot of your community involvement has a focus on mental health. Can you just explain a little bit more about why is that and what's driven you to sort of go down that the road of addressing those issues?
Well, pretty simply, it was in 1998, I had a very severe breakdown myself and was off work for a long time. I was subsequently diagnosed with bipolar disorder, which involved depression, anxiety, all those types of things. And over the following years, I came across a number of people who had actually been ruined as a result of experiencing events in their own life like that. People who, come from, $200,000 a year jobs down onto disability support income and things like that. So it ruins people's self-esteem. In a lot of cases, it ruined their ability to articulate the issues that they were facing. And there was also so much stigma around mental health issues and things like that. So I just thought it was time as a society that we started having these conversations, and probably more particularly in rural areas where it was regarded as probably more of a weakness than what it was in the city. But today, I must say, I'm very pleased to say that I see a mental health landscape far different to what it was 10, 15 years ago. It's hugely different.
Yeah, it's definitely in the media and out there in conversations a lot more than it used to be, isn't it?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, it's really good. People actually talk about it.
Yeah, and have you seen that translate into positive outcomes yet, or is it still a bit early to see that ripple effect of that?
Oh no, I've seen it translate into positive outcomes. I mean, last year we had a friendship walk here in Wedderburn for to raise money for the people up in Hillston, which was an extremely drought-stricken place in the Riverina area of New South Wales. And I was actually asked to come down to that walk and guest speak there about mental health issues and how they should be dealt with in a community and where the help was available and things like that. And one of the things that I reflected on was just how amazing that was, that over 10 years ago, that address would never have been given. So that's a credit very, very much to the people and the community of Wedderburn and other areas as well that have opened their minds up to realise that people face these challenges, and mental health is just as important as physical health.
That's so good, because a lot of people, if they've got those issues themselves and they don't feel they can talk about it, that's just going to exacerbate the issue, isn't it? Whereas if people are more open about it generally, they might have more of a chance to go and seek help and speak to, even if it's a friend, to speak to someone.
Absolutely right. Yep.
And so tell us a bit more about the Loddon Healthy Minds Network. At Make a Change, we love advocating for community-led and collaborative approaches to address all sorts of issues. And I just grabbed my attention because it seemed like this network seems like a very good community-led and collaborative approach specifically for mental health. So why is this approach? Can you tell us a bit more about it and why it's so important and what difference it's making?
Well, the structure of the Healthy Minds Network is very important for several reasons, Karen. Initially the idea when the Healthy Minds Network was set up was to have support groups in each of the major towns in the Shire, and that the people in those support groups would be people with mental health issues, carers for mental health issues, for people with mental health issues, or even people just interested in the general principle of mental health and the importance of talking about it. And that was the grassroots level, which would feed back into the committee, the Healthy Minds Network, about what the problems were and the challenges in the Shire with regard to that. And a lot of that was the tyranny of distance, the inaccessibility of specialist services, financial issues in getting to those services, transport issues in getting to those services, things like that. A lot of these things that haven't necessarily been considered. So the main committee would then, in its capacity as a committee of the Loddon Shire Council, advocate to places like Bendigo Loddon Primary Care Partnership, Bendigo Health, and of course, because it's the third tier of government, it had direct access to the state government and who were ultimately responsible for mental health as well. So that was the purpose in the structure. Now, the support groups, unfortunately, haven't been very successful. It seems that you can get them going and then they go for a while and then people wander off and do their own thing and it falls over and that sort of thing. But one of the interesting things that has happened as a result of COVID is that there are support groups that are now streaming out of Melbourne on Zoom. And I think that may well be the answer for the future, because it's going to provide accessibility to a much broader range of people. And, this is the sort of thing that happened with the Healthy Minds Suicide Prevention Forum, that we did the whole forum online, which had the potential to reach a national and even international audience. So, yeah, it's a really good structure, I believe, and I hope it's something that a lot of other local governments might adopt and pursue for the benefit of their own communities.
Yeah, so are you aware of any other councils doing this kind of network?
There was one that we were aware of, and unfortunately that's sort of fallen by the wayside. We have had discussions with a couple of other shires, but they haven't got off the ground.
Yeah.
Whether it's somebody in the community needs to be a driver there, or a CEO needs to have had personal experience or something, so it becomes a real issue. Look, I don't know what the answer is, but we'll keep working away at it anyway.
Yeah, well,
we'll get to more.
I hadn't heard of that kind of a structure specifically addressing mental health before, and that's why I was interested in it. But I think it could be, if there's people in communities that are passionate about that issue, it's a good example of how people might be able to tackle it for a particular region.
Well, it's a combination of the Shire staff and a councillor chairs it. Then you've got members of the professional organisations that service the area, and then community representatives from each of the places within the community, who are basically your local champions, if you like, for mental health, that can reach out to the community, or the people in the community can reach out to, and let them know what's going on with mental health in the town.
And so was it started from the council, or was it from community approaching the council?
It was started from community approaching the council.
Was that you, Ric?
Yes, in conjunction with a lady called Maureen Turnbull.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I think that's why I thought that, because that's why I think, that's probably why it's so successful, because it's had yourself who's passionate about this issue approaching a government or an authority that has a structure that can help set it up, and it's obviously got their backing and support, which probably is what's the combination that's made it sustainable. So with obviously the situation this year with the pandemic, there's been a lot of stress and uncertainty for people, and more hardship, and more people being socially isolated. Have you seen an increase in mental health issues during this time? And what are the biggest challenges you think might need to be addressed as we're coming out of this pandemic?
Look, I think there's indeed been many challenges as a result of COVID. It's something that nobody has ever experienced before, and mental health for some people has been a considerable issue. For others, hasn't necessarily been the case. It varies. I've seen this particularly around the elderly, though, who haven't had access to family, and people are naturally concerned with change, and uncertainty can always create anxiety. It's always a difficulty. But anecdotally as well, there's also been a considerable uptake of mental health services. Now, it's really good to see that the government has made so much funding available to provide additional mental health services into communities and things like that. So that's a good thing. Interestingly enough, on a positive note as well, and I've also seen mental health is taking a far greater place in our communities, and it's been recognised more along the lines of just as important as physical health, as opposed to something separate. Yep.
I have definitely noticed more people, because of the pandemic, thinking about how we're going to care more for the people around us. And because the impacts have been more about mental issues, not so much physical, because we're not going anywhere, so we're not having accidents and things like that. It definitely has been more to do with mental health. I think people are genuinely trying to find ways that they can look out for each other and help others. So just with that, so what role can groups like Healthy Minds Network play in the recovery of the pandemic, and what role can we as individuals or neighbours or community members or within organisations can we play?
There's a couple of things, like groups like Healthy Minds, for example, can assist in making the community aware of what help is available and where it is through their websites. I know that Healthy Minds in the past have sent out fridge magnets with the Bendigo Psych Services 24/7 number on it, and Lifeline's number, which is always a good thing. Probably one of the most important things is the work around reducing stigma around mental health and suicide prevention. And there is a wonderful lady called Jodie Rasmussen at Murray Primary Health Network who initiated a program called Stop Stigma. And a lot of organisations have signed up to that. It's a Stop Stigma charter. And I would highly recommend organisations get behind that and implement the Stop Stigma charter, because it raises the opportunity to have the conversations around mental health and that type of thing. And probably one of the other things is that people need to realise that mental illness is very much like COVID-19. It can happen to anyone. It is non-discriminatory. It doesn't matter who you were or who you are or where you come from. You can still be affected by it. So individuals, neighbours, organisations, they can also work around the issue of stigma and just getting rid of this horribly insidious aspect of mental health, as far as I'm concerned.
So raising awareness is sort of fundamental, and we'll have to share the link to that charter. That sounds very useful, practical for us all to do. And what about just going on from that? If are there things that we can make ourselves and others aware about to reduce the chances of a decline in mental health, or is that just something that can just happen and you can't really do much about it?
I think you can't do much about the community impact of something, a pandemic like COVID.
No, you can't.
And I suppose on an extremely positive front too, Karen, is that at Healthy Minds, we've been advocating for the use of Skype or video conferencing of some sort for many years, mainly because of the tyranny of distance from rural areas, and specialists always tend to be in the larger regional areas or Melbourne. So we just met with resistance at every level. So now COVID comes along and people in rural areas don't have to travel to Bendigo. They don't have to go to other major centres to speak to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. It's all done by telehealth.
Yeah.
It saves people heaps of money in travelling expenses and travelling time. I really hope it's here to stay. It's proved to be a real winner as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, definitely with the work that we've been doing with Let's Pivot, and we've been able to connect people from rural towns all over central and regional Victoria, which has been fantastic,
Right.
which we wouldn't have been able to do. I mean, we have had events where people do travel in the car from a long way away to connect, but they're like one-off events, and they're only going to have people that are in a position to be able to travel and, take a whole day out of their time of their busy schedule. So yeah, definitely see there's a lot of positives, and I hope that we do continue to take on some of those newer ways of doing things ongoingly. Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of our listeners and people who get involved in Make a Change initiatives are working on projects and ideas that make a difference in their communities, addressing all sorts of issues. What's one piece of advice you can give others looking to make a change?
Don't listen to people who say the word can't. We'll look for reasons why. So look, for me, most importantly, surround yourself with positive people and get the idea into action as soon as you possibly can. I find too many people overthink what could go wrong and try and cover all the bases and risk analysis and all that. And that's important, but you've got to find some balance. So it doesn't matter how long you think about a project, you'll never cover all the things that could go wrong. So be dynamic and be prepared to adapt the idea, be prepared to accept that things will go wrong, and be prepared to get in there and fix them dynamically as you go through the implementation process. And of course, always measure its success too. Yep.
And finally, how can people get involved in the Healthy Minds Network or any other of the great community initiatives that you're involved in?
Well, the Healthy Minds Network is obviously restricted to the Loddon Shire, but look, we are looking for new community representatives at the moment. I believe that Wendy Gladman from the Shire is about to put out an advertisement looking for people from the towns or the ridings in the Shire to come on board the network. But apart from that, obviously you can get your council or your Shire to start its own, and the Healthy Minds are more than happy to have meetings with people or speak to people about their model and assist them in duplicating it for their benefit. When we did the Suicide Prevention Forum, one of the concepts was that we're always looking for things that suicide prevention techniques or mental health initiatives that we could Loddonise, which was the term we use. So anything that can be transplanted from one area to another and make it work there is always a good thing,
Yeah, that's great. I definitely recommend anyone listening today to do that, because I know just from having Ric involved in our Let's Pivot conversations, is always coming out with amazing words of wisdom along the topics we're covering. So got a lot of things to learn and hear about from Ric. So that's fantastic. Thanks so much, Ric, for your time today. I really appreciate learning a bit more about all of those things and your thoughts on what's such an important issue. And it's good to see that things are progressing, and hopefully they continue to do so in the future as we go forward. So thanks everyone for listening in today as well. Just a reminder that, this interview is part of Let's Pivot. A special thanks to all our partners who have been involved in that. The 4 shires of City of Greater Bendigo, City of Ballarat, Gannawarra Shire and Loddon, as well as North Central CMA, Bushfire Foundation, Bendigo Bank and Collarbone Water. So thanks again, and we'll see you all soon.